Okay, so let's start with the first easy, nice, common equation. We're going to do a lot of examples, so get ready to pay attention. Okay, so let's look at this equation. You have H2 plus O2 giving you H2O. Now, remember, when we balance equations, we cannot change subscripts. So here's all the subscripts here, 2, 2, 2, which means we are not even going to touch these numbers. The only thing we can do is change coefficients and put numbers in front of this compounds. Now we need to make sure that we have the same number of atoms or elements on the left hand side, which is everything on this side, and we need to make sure we have the same number on the product side, which is everything on the right hand side. Now let's start with hydrogen. Normally we said we're going to leave hydrogen and oxygen for last, but obviously there is only hydrogen and oxygen here. So let's start with hydrogen. Right, now we have on this side 2 hydrogens. Because of the subscript 2, it tells you that we have 2 hydrogens, and on this side we also have 2 hydrogens because this subscript means also 2 hydrogens. So far we have the right amount of hydrogens here and we have the right amount of hydrogens here. Now we need to look at oxygen. Now on this side we have 2 oxygens, and on this side, can you see we only have 1. If you don't have any number or any subscript, it means it's a 1. It's like in maths. If you don't write anything, it means it's a 1. So if we only have 1 oxygen on this side, and on this side we have 2 oxygens, it means we need to make both sides equal. So we need to change this one and make it into a 2 so that both sides can have 2 oxygens. So the only thing we can do, remember, is put a coefficient. So if we want to change this 1 oxygen into a 2, all we have to do is put a coefficient in front of this compound so it can become 2. And the only way you're going to make it 2 is if you put a 2 in front of the H2O. So this will become 2H2O. And now this coefficient, remember, coefficient applies to the entire compound, so it applies to the hydrogen and the oxygen. So now we have 2 oxygens here, and here we have 2 oxygens. So now the oxygens are fine. But because we put a 2 in front of water, it means now this 2 also goes to the hydrogen also. It doesn't only go to oxygen, it goes to hydrogen as well, which means before we only had 2 hydrogens. Now because I put a 2 here, I have 2 times 2, which is 4 hydrogens. Now I have increased hydrogens. Now if we go back to this side, here we only had 2 hydrogens, and here we have 4. So I have to make this side also a 4. So because I have a 2 here, I have to put something that if you multiply it by 2 will give you 4, and that is 2, because 2 multiplied by 2 gives you 4. So now I have here 2 times 2 hydrogens, which is 4 hydrogens, and here I have 2 times 2, which is also 4. Here I have 2 oxygens, and because of this 2, this became 2 oxygens. So now this equation is balanced. So to check if it's balanced, just make sure whatever you have on the left hand side, which is on the reactant side, is equal to everything you have on the product side. Okay, let's do the next one. So you have here Br2 plus H2 giving you HBr. Right, so again we said here we are not going to touch subscripts, so we're not going to touch these 2's here. We only can change coefficients. Right, so we're going to start with bromine here because we have to leave hydrogen for last. So let's look at bromine. Now on this side, which is the left hand side, let's divide this in 2. You can see that you have 2 bromines here, and here we don't have any numbers, which means we only have 1 bromine. So we have to make this side 2 bromines so we can equal to this side 2 bromines. So what can you do? Change the coefficient, and if you want to make this a 2, obviously I have to put a 2 in front of it. Now this 2 is both for the hydrogen and for the bromine, which means now I have 2 bromines, and this side I have 2 bromines, so the bromines are fine. Now if we go to hydrogen, on this side I have 2 hydrogens, and because I put this coefficient of 2 in front of hydrogens, now hydrogen has also 2 of them, which means if I have 2 here and 2 here, they are balanced. So both hydrogen and bromine is balanced, so this equation is balanced. And can you see I haven't changed anything here? I only had to change 1 number to balance this equation. So sometimes it's more simple and sometimes it's more difficult. Right, let's look at number 3. you have nitrogen plus hydrogen giving you ammonia. So again, I cannot touch this subscripts here. This subscripts will remain the same. I only have to change coefficients. So I'm going to start with nitrogen because we always leave hydrogen and oxygen for last. So here I have 2 nitrogens. Here I only have 1. So the only way I can make this into a 2 is by putting a coefficient of 2. So I'm going to put 2 in front of this NH3. Now I have 2 nitrogens this side, 2 nitrogens this side, so the nitrogens are fine. Now I need to go to the hydrogen. Now on this side, can you see I have 2 hydrogens? And here I have 3 hydrogens because of the subscript, but because I put the coefficient here, the coefficient goes to everything, which means it also went to the hydrogen. So now the total number of hydrogens I have is 2 times 3, which is 6 hydrogens. So on this side I now have 6 hydrogens, and this side I have 2. So I have to make this side also a 6. So I have to put something in front of the hydrogen here. When I multiply it by 2, it will give me 6. And what will you multiply by 2 gives you 6? It is a 3. So you're going to put a 3 here. So now when you say 3 times 2, this gives you 6 hydrogens, and that matches with this 6 hydrogens. So it means the nitrogens are balanced now and the hydrogens are balanced. So this equation is balanced. Okay, let's go to the next one. CH4 plus O2 giving you CO2 plus H2O. Now look carefully at this one here. Can you see that here we have oxygen 2 places? We have oxygen here and oxygen here. So if we want to get the total number of oxygens, we have to add what we have here to what we have there. Okay, so just keep in mind when you have it in 2 places, it's going to become a little bit more complicated, but we will just leave the oxygens for last. Right, so let's start with the carbon, because remember we said we're starting with every other element besides hydrogen and oxygen. Right, so again, we cannot change subscripts, but we can only change coefficients. So here we have 1 carbon here, and here's the carbon in CO2. There's 1 of them, so carbons are fine. Now let's go to hydrogen. Here we have 4 hydrogens, and with H2O we have 2 hydrogens. So we need to make this side also to be 4 hydrogens so it can match with this 4 hydrogens. So we already have a 2 here, so we need to put a coefficient here, which when we multiply the 2 of them, they will give us 4. And obviously, if I put a 2 here and I say 2 times 2, that will give me 4 hydrogens. So I have 4 hydrogens on this side and I have 4 hydrogens on this side, so the hydrogens are fine. Now we are left only with oxygen. Now on this side, I only have oxygen here, and this is 2 oxygens. And then on the product side, which is on the right hand side, I have the 2 from carbon dioxide. Can you see that? And then I also have this oxygen here from water. Now because I put the coefficient of 2 before water, it means this 2 is for both hydrogen and oxygen. So this 2 is also for the oxygen. So because there's a 2 here, it means now there is 2 oxygens here. And I also have 2 oxygens here. So both of these oxygens together will give me 4 oxygens. 2 plus 2 will give me 4. Now on this side, I only have 2. So I need to also make it a 4 just like the other side. So I need to put something in front of here, in front of this oxygen, which when I multiply it, it will give me 4. And obviously, if you multiply 2 by 2, it will give you 4. So now you have 4 oxygens on this side and 4 oxygens on this side. 4 hydrogens here, 4 hydrogens here, 1 carbon here, 1 carbon here. It's all balanced, so this equation is balanced. Right, let's move on to the next one. This one here is a little bit different. Right, so you have iron plus oxygen giving you iron oxide. So remember, we're leaving oxygen for last and we're starting with iron first. So here we have 1 iron and here we have 2 ions. So that's simple. I just have to make this side also a 2 so it is equal to this side. So all I'm going to do is put a 2 in front of this iron. So now I have 2 ions here, 2 ions here. Now on this side I have 2 oxygens and on this side I have 3 oxygens. Now this is a bit tricky because how are you going to change this side into 3 oxygens when you have 3 oxygens on this side? How are you going to change a 2 into a 3? Now anytime you have something like that where you have a 2 and you need to make it into a 3 and it's a bit complicated because you can't do that, what you do is you are going to take the 2 numbers, you're going to take the 2 that you have here, and you're going to take the 3 that you have here, and you're going to multiply it together. So you're going to say 2 times 3, and that will give you 6. Now you are going to try to make both sides equal to 6. Whatever answer you got from multiplying that two numbers, the 2 and the 3, you're going to make both sides have 6. So this side you have 2 and you want to make it a 6. So what can you do to 2 to make it 6? You multiply it by 3. So you're going to put a 3 in front of here. So 3 times 2 will give you 6. And then on this side, you have a 3 and you want to make it a 6. So what must you do? You multiply it by 2. So you're going to put a 2 in front of this. So now when you have 2 and 3 here, you multiply those two numbers. So it gives you 6 oxygen. So now the oxygens are fine. So basically, it's like you cross multiplying. You had a 2 here, so you put a 3 here. Here you had a 3 and now you're putting a 2 here. So both sides gives you 6. But when you put this 2 in front of the iron oxide, this 2 also went to iron. So it means now you don't only have 2 iron like how you had 2 times 2, which is 4. So now you have 4 ions on this side. And if you go back here, we only had a 2 here, isn't it? So now we need to make this into a 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this 2 and put a 4 in front of it. Okay, so it becomes 4 iron plus 3 oxygen, giving you 2 iron oxide. This is what I meant by trial and error. Sometimes you just have to play around until both sides are equal to each other.